A majority of Democratic voters say Joe Biden should pick a woman of color as his running mate. That's according to a new USA Today and Suffolk poll. 72% of Democrats surveyed responded that it was somewhat or very important Biden puts a woman of color on the ticket. Meanwhile, 27% believed it's not very or not at all important. For more, let's bring in CBS News political analyst and Democratic strategist Antjuan Seawright. Antjuan, it's so nice to talk to you again. Let's dig into these sweepstakes. The Biden campaign says it still has not finished assembling a final shortlist of possible running mates. Who are the top-tier contenders right now?
Well, let's slow this car down for a second, Elaine. This will be the most consequential decision Joe Biden will make and throughout this entire presidential preference cycle. And so I think that we have to be crystal clear and sober about this decision being a marathon, not a sprint, and direction being more important than speed. I've been crystal clear about this from the very beginning. I'm from South Carolina. I know where Joe Biden's bread was buttered and who did the buttering. It was African-American voters that got him to this place. Therefore, I am unapologetically loud about the fact that he should not just choose a woman of color, but should choose a black woman, because black people are the political concrete of this Democratic Party. Very clear about that. However, if it doesn't make sense for Joe Biden, for whatever reason, whoever he chooses to be his running mate, I am totally convinced for Democrats and for the sake of the country, that person will be better fit than Mike Pence and Donald Trump.
So what do you think Joe Biden is looking for in a vice president, especially considering that, of course, he served as one himself?
Well, I think conventional wisdom would tell you the vice presidency pick does not matter as much. But we are not living in conventional times, so conventional wisdom goes out of the door. I would also tell you that most people in these type decisions think about geographic. I've been very focused on demographic, because demographics make up coalitions, and coalitions will get you to victory in terms of the electoral college, not necessarily winning the popular vote, which we did very well in 2016. And so I think demographics matter. I also think someone who can help implement the policy agenda that Joe Biden wants to implement, particularly for consequential constituencies like communities of color, that also matters. And so I think there will be a number of things that go into his decision-making process, but it has to be someone he feels comfortable with. It has to be someone who is very complementary politically to him and to the agenda he wants to implement across this country, and someone who can work with the Congress in order to deliver that agenda. Because if there's one thing Joe Biden demonstrated in his time as vice president, is that he was able to help usher through some of the most pivotal pieces of legislation in my political lifetime from President Barack Obama and his agenda.
So I want to go back to what you mentioned at the top. You wrote an opinion piece in April in which you said, quote, "As an African American from the Deep South, I feel very strongly that choosing a black woman for the job is a no-brainer." So you believe the Biden campaign is considering this now more than ever? And which black women are considered to be at the top of that list?
I think they would be tone deaf to not have top priority being a black woman, considering who got him to this point, i.e. the nomination, and two, considering the temperature and the tone of the environment we are living in and the times we are living through. The one thing about this vice presidential pick, this person must be able to not just campaign anywhere, but speak to people's experiences everywhere. And I think a black woman being raised by one, being surrounded by a long history of them in my lifetime, I know what they can do, I know what they're capable of, and I know their ability to be able to lead. So I think that's so important for perspective and for Joe Biden to reward the most loyal constituency in a generation, and that's black women. This country has been built on many things, but this Democratic Party has been solidified and dried upon by the work and the dedication of black women.
So who's at the top of that list? You didn't name names, Antjuan.
You know, when you name names as a fifth generation AME, you tend to get in trouble. But I will tell you, there are several qualified African American women who ring the bell very loudly from being qualified, but not only meeting what I think the criteria Joe Biden needs in order to get across the finish line first. We often hear Kamala Harris. We know the body of work and what Val Demings brings to the table. We've seen what Keisha Lance Bottoms can do in a crisis. There's so many other names that always tend to bubble up, but I'm gonna leave that to Joe Biden and his very well able and capable vetting team to go through this process, because what works for Antjuan may not work for Joe. And I want to be able to trust Joe because the voters trusted him to be our nominee, not Antjuan.
Right. Okay. So copy that, Antjuan. All right. Only 2 women, as you know, have been running mates on a presidential ticket for a major political party, Democrat Geraldine Ferraro in 1984 and Republican Sarah Palin in 2008. How significant would it be for Biden to have a woman as his VP pick in 2020?
If my mother was not listening, I would say it's a BFD, but I will not say that for the sake of my mother listening. But it's a very historic thing. Look, and if Joe Biden were to pick a woman of color, it would be another historic layer on top of just being a woman. So I think that's important. But not only did he commit to picking a woman as his running mate, he also committed to putting a black woman on the Supreme Court. When you think about the coalition needed to win up and down the ballot in November and what the key ingredients to that coalition will look like, Black women are at the top priority chart of that. And I think that's so important for the signal he's sending. And he's also someone who served in one of the most diverse cabinets in our nation's history. And I think you will see that play out under a Joe Biden administration once again. And it also sets the tone and sends a strong message about what the future of this country should look like and what our government should look like from a reflective standpoint of the changing demographics of this country.
All right, Antjuan Seawright, so great to see you again. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Elaine.